Welcome, magical one. In my last video, I promised you we'd talk about another one of the little demons that can stand between you and your writing. And this time it's procrastination. And I do have to laugh at myself because having committed to publishing tips in the middle of the week, you can see that this one's a bit late. And of course, the reason is procrastination. So I want to delve into why that happened because it might just help you to look into my mirror. But before we get started, here's a quick reminder just to please subscribe to the channel and click that little bell that you see so that you get the notifications so that you don't miss anything whenever we publish. And feel free to share this video with your friends, anybody who you think would benefit. And we'd really love to hear from you in the comments below about how this video lands with you. Okay, so that's the boring bit done. So now let's get to the interesting part. And I talked last time about the demon of self-doubt. Remember that? And today it's taking a different form. This is about putting things off. Now, maybe you're super productive with your creativity and can just sit down and write or draw or make music whenever you want to, which is wonderful, in which case I absolutely salute you. However, the majority of creatives will at some point face procrastination. And we can get very creative in the ways that we avoid our creativity, even though it's actually something we really want to do. So let's examine just a few of the ways this shows up for me and the potential reasons why that happens. And then you can let me know if you've ever had one of those experiences too, okay? This is a question, have you ever cleaned your entire house, including all the cupboards and the drawers and the closets, whenever you have a writing deadline? This is my favorite avoidance technique. I'm ashamed to admit that I even cleaned a car engine once rather than write a magazine article, which was due the same day. Now that's quite an avoidance strategy. This was under the hood, under the bonnet, not just the inside and outside of the car, the full engine. Pretty serious, huh? Eesh. Or maybe you've left something to the very last minute and you'd hoped that it would just go away. Or you would have some divine flash of inspiration in the final hour. I've done that too. I've actually lost count of the late night writing sessions I've had to finish because I was skating up to a deadline. Netflix is another great distractor. It's amazing how many episodes you can find to watch back to back when you should be writing. And sometimes I'll even start a piece of work and maybe perfect the introduction and the ending without anything in the middle. It's another form of procrastination. Or even spend all my time researching and not actually putting fingers to keyboard until it's too late. And I'm very good at telling myself it's all a necessary part of the process, but actually it's just another delay tactic. So if you recognize yourself in any of those scenarios, it can be helpful to understand why you do it. And one suggestion is fear of failure. If you're worried at all that your writing won't turn out how you want it to, sometimes it's easier not to even start it. Perfectionism is a very hard taskmaster. We all know that. And conversely, fear of success can be another reason. I, for example, have a fear that if I start writing, I may not be able to stop, or I might even lose my mind, and I might forget to eat or sleep or go to the bathroom or see other people. And this one actually is based in a real experience I had in my 20s where I did go for a few days in a kind of writing frenzy. And then I lost everything I'd written, which made it even worse. But I've since learned that you can always put in some safeguards in that situation. It's not realistic that you're going to be completely swept away by your creativity. So you can put in safeguards like setting a timer, for example, or asking a friend to call in or phone or drop by at a certain point. Another favorite of mine is to imagine a rope tied around your waist and maybe anchored to a tree as you wade down the riverbank into the flowing river of creativity. That can help too. It's just putting those little little safe practices in place so that you can feel secure when you go into your writing, and not feel that you're going to be forever swept away. Another fear that can stop you writing is the fear of losing your autonomy. So if someone else is setting a deadline, for example, a publisher, then a part of you might feel that the only way you can assert your independence is by putting them off. Or maybe you fear being alone. After all, writing can be quite solitary. Or maybe you have a fear of attachment and being with other people. So you can use the chaos caused by not writing as a kind of barrier between you and them, just to keep other people away. So I think there are many reasons why we don't write, or why we excuse ourselves from writing or creating, but ultimately none of them are very satisfying. Wouldn't it just be easier to cut through all that procrastination and just get on with it, so that we can enjoy the other things that we love doing without feeling guilty or lazy? So here are a few tips that might help. The first tip is to get really clear on why and when you procrastinate. Is it when someone else is setting the deadline, or when you are, when you've made a commitment to yourself? And how does it feel in your body when that procrastination comes up? Is there like a tightness in your tummy, a headache maybe, or just tension in your shoulders? How does it feel for you? Do you lose concentration? Do you get a fuzzy head? It's worth noticing when these symptoms surface. How often do you ignore the task, hoping it's just going to go away? Or perhaps you over or underestimate how long it's going to take you to write or to create, and how much research is required. It helps to get very, very clear on these details so that you can spot the triggers for you. And the second tip is to figure out, when do you do your best work? For me, it can be 3 a.m. Not very convenient, but it's the only time the house is quiet, everyone's asleep. Maybe it's early morning, late afternoon, or evening maybe for you, whatever works. And having a quiet and dedicated space to work is also a good idea. Although you've got to remember not to let preparing that space become another distraction, another reason for procrastination. That's easy to do too. Getting the perfect desk and the perfect filing system and all the best pens and notebooks, and oh my gosh, I can go down a rabbit hole there. And I've actually found that I produce my best work when I'm traveling, or when I'm in trains, on a train, or in a cafe surrounded by other people, which was a real surprise to me, because I thought I needed peace and quiet. But by experimenting with different places, you actually get to know, you don't necessarily need this space to write. It can be anywhere if you're in the right frame of mind. And it can also shake up that kind of procrastination thing. You feel like you're kind of outwitting it a little bit by being somewhere else. So that's another one. Tip number 3 is to break every project down into tiny chunks, really small chunks. So for example, an introduction is separate from a summary or a chapter outline, or, it's bullet points can really help here. And when you then focus on just tackling one of those chunks, it makes it much easier to avoid that overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, I'm going to have to write all weekend, or, oh, I've got to write this whole book, or, oh, I've got to, create this song from scratch, or write this poem. It's much easier if you can do it in little bits. Sometimes things come through fully formed, but, you can play around with this. And step number 4 is to create what's called an unschedule. So that's taking a calendar like Google Calendar, which is really good, or a diary, and you physically block the time for everything you need to do that week. And that includes sleeping, eating, showering, exercising, working on other projects, spending time with your kids or your friends or your family. And most importantly, schedule the time to have fun in that week. And once you've got all of that planned out, you'll be able to see the time pockets that you've got available for writing. They may not be very long. Where possible, that's why chunking things help. So where possible, if you can schedule writing time in 25-minute blocks with a 5-minute rest at the end, that's perfect. That's when your brain will be working optimally. You can also create a playlist, like a music playlist on your phone, which will subconsciously help focus your mind on the task. So whenever you queue up that playlist, your brain knows, okay, it's time to write. That's a really good trigger for you if you can set that up. Choose your favorite tunes. So when you sit down to write, you can set your timer for 25 minutes, and then you can start your playlist, and then you just tell yourself you're going to write for that full straight 25 minutes without editing. 25 minutes straight. Doesn't matter what you write. You could write, I don't want to write this, I don't want to write this, I don't want to write this. You just keep going, and something will come through. So you just do it consistently. That's the trick. And then finally, it's important to give yourself a reward, some kind of hey, you did really well, during that 5 minutes break at the end. So a piece of fruit maybe, or chocolate in my case. They all work wonders. Or you can even do like a little dance or a stretch or something that makes you feel good. So that's the 5 minutes at the end. And then if you've got time for another 25-minute session after that, then you can carry on with that and have another 5-minute break at the end. No more than 2 at a time, I would say, to maximize your potential. But 25 minutes seems to work really well. So there you go. There's some tips that will help you push on through that procrastination. And don't worry, because it might take a little bit of time to adopt these new habits. If you're anything like me, you've been a procrastinator for a very long time. And the important thing is just to keep going. And if you do fall into the old ways, then don't give yourself a hard time. Honey works better than vinegar, as they say. So there's some of the tips that work really well for me. I'm intrigued to know if they work for you. Some of them will, some of them won't, whatever. And in our next video together, we'll look at one of the other demons, which is the inner critic. Who doesn't have one of those? But in the meantime, I'd love to hear your examples of procrastination and all the ways your inner critic is mean to you as well. So let me know in the comments, and with your permission, I'll share some of them in the next tips video. Okay, I hope that was useful. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and most important, keep writing. I look forward to seeing you soon. Lots of love.